Brodes Media.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? I can't wait for you to listen to this show, the Philly Top 11. I want to give a shout out to the afternoon show on WIP for really setting the tone. It's mid-June. There's not that much going on. So let's rip each other apart for who you feel is the top 11 athletes in Philadelphia currently. So it's a blast. I mean, I just love it. And I also love Emilio Cigars. This item is so fantastic. It tastes so good. I can't even explain it. You need to try it. I sit out back waiting for the Phillies to start late in the evening, and I light one of these puppies up, and I've never been happier. I had a couple of my friends try them out. I got a whole box right here, and they were in awe. I said, fellas, listen up. There's only one cigar to smoke, and that's Emilio Cigars. They got some old school roots with some new school attitude, locally owned, third generation, made at the Fabrica Oveja Negra in Nicaragua. I mean, this is no joke. This is all business. It's so serious. And what you can do is you can go to your local shops and ask for Emilio Cigars. And you can also check the link out down below in the description. It'll take you to their website. I can't stress this enough. This is so good. So good. So damn good. You got to try it. Emilio Cigars. Check him out today. Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome on into Bleacher Report on this Monday evening, 6 o'clock. Bleacher Report app. Nowhere better to be than here. And this is reality. It is the middle of June. There is not that much going on around town outside of our baseball team, and then nationally, you have the NBA playoffs and the Stanley Cup playoffs in action. So our local radio station, 94.1 WIP, have a top 11 list where all of the hosts put together their individual top 11 Philadelphia athletes currently over the last year, and the listeners as well. And then collectively as a group, you package the data up, and day by day this week, the list will be announced. And on Friday, the full list will be announced because you get a couple of new names per day, if all of that makes sense. So that's sort of the landscape of it all. But why I want to apply it to our conversation here on BR is I'm curious where you all think these Eagles should be. And if I miscalculated some of these Eagles and where the Eagles are on my list, who didn't make it, who did, where they're ranked compared to other athletes in town. And again, the criteria is about what they've done over the last year or so. It's not resume. It's where they are at their game currently and what they've shown on the court, on the field, on the ice, etc. So let's begin, now that you sort of have a baseline on what this is all about, with my 11th. So the first player currently in Philadelphia that is right outside the top 10. And I have Quinyon Mitchell. What he was able to do in his first year coming out of Toledo was out of this world. Unbelievable, locking down legitimate corners, or excuse me, he could probably lock down corners too, but locking down wide receivers nonstop, doing his thing, eating up some serious weapons and not giving the other quarterback an opportunity to target their number one option in the offense. And he did it week after week. Quite frankly, it was bizarre if there was ever a sequence where he made a mistake or where somebody got the best of him. It happened once in a blue moon. But I'm telling you, I could count maybe 3 times where that was the case. other than that, my man was locked in. He was on a mission. He was making a statement to the league all across the board, all across the entire planet. Everybody knew Quinyon Mitchell was a dog, and now his name is on high alert. Every few years or so, there's someone who's constantly at the top of the leaderboard. Jalen Ramsey was once there. Darius Slay was once there. It goes on and on and on who is the top dog, right? Wasn't it Josh Norman for a cup of coffee? Well, it's about to be the Quinyon Mitchell show around the National Football League. He is so good. He is so sick, and he's only going to get better. When we look at these young kids and we see how much they accomplished in their first season, it's pretty damn mind-blowing. But at the same point, we can't sit here and act as if this is who they are. Guess what? Now they know the speed of the game. Now they know what to improve on. Now they know about the work ethic it takes. When you have more knowledge and more information, the game slows down. You know what the offseason needs to be. You know the way to approach the weight room. And most importantly, I just mentioned it, the game slows down. So you're just going to be making more plays, jumping more routes, knowing what receivers are trying to do, the little intricacies of the wide receivers and how they try and gain leverage or how they try to use tactics and certain things to create separation and cheat a little bit. You have that information now to counter that the best you can. I mean, players couldn't even use that against Quinyon to begin with. I'm excited for the future of him, but just outside the top 10 in Philadelphia right now is one Quinyon Mitchell. Let's get to number 10. Now, he's the only Philadelphia Flyer to make my list. And it seems as if there wasn't a lot of buzz based off of other radio hosts at the station and some of the listeners. But Matvey Michkov is the face of the Philadelphia Flyers, and he led all rookies in goals this year with John Tortorella, who would bench him constantly, who would sit him in games, and oh, by the way, would healthy scratch him too. So he would have to watch from upstairs in a suit and tie and not even gain the experience on the ice as a rookie who would have to go through some ups and downs. You'd think that that would be a very strong way to learn, a very strong way to get experience. And then again, just like I mentioned with Q, you can take that experience and just blossom and become a better version of yourself. But he had to deal with that nonsense from the head coach. Oh, by the way, the power play for the Flyers was abysmal. If they had just a below average power play, you can look at 26 goals or so and maybe be looking at a 30 goal scorer his rookie year. So this man is the face of the Flyers. He is a superstar in the making. He played over in Russia prior to coming to the NHL, and he did some really nasty things against grown men in a really strong Russian professional league in the KHL. So, I mean, it's all pointing towards great things. I believe he's probably going to progress on this list as the years continue, but it is a great spot to be as he embraces his first year in the NHL, his first offseason. This man came into a meeting with Danny Briere, the Flyers GM, when the season was over and said, this is exactly what I'm going to work on and what I'm going to really focus on this offseason to make sure I'm the best I can be next year. There were times where people thought he hit a wall because it's 82 games against grown men, and he wants to make sure his body is right so that doesn't happen last year. This kid's just getting started. I mean, those details and that emphasis and really the sense of urgency to go to the GM with the list that he's going into the offseason with, it shows that he is wired the right way to help get this franchise out of the slump and out of the garbage that they've been in. Number 9. Another Philadelphia Eagle, and some are saying I have this man way too low, and that is Jalen Carter. Now, I do eventually believe, if you can't tell, there's a lot of youth in the early stages of this list. I believe he will be Aaron Donald 2.0 at one point. This guy wrecks games. This guy is scary. Other teams' defensive coordinators, what a player who can take over and be as lethal and can eat up and swallow so much space the way Jalen Carter does. That's all they dream about when putting together a roster defensively in their mind. That's what DC's want badly. On the flip side, offensive coordinators stay up late having nightmares knowing that they need to put together a structure to stop him. There's no such thing as offensive linemen that can stop him. So now you got to start working doubles. And when you start working doubles, what does that open up across the defensive line for the Eagles to do? I mean, you just have guys like Nolan Smith, and hopefully this year Jordan Davis can get to the quarterback more. And, there's just so much that others do, and you can prioritize their skill sets because you know that there's favorable matchups along the line because the presence of Jalen Carter is so important. It is such a lethal weapon that even if he's not doing the damage, which it's very rare he's not, if he's not getting into the backfield, the attention is drawn to him so much that others are now able to flourish. Others are now able to get a payday. Hey, Josh Sweat, Josh Sweat should be sending a percentage of his paycheck that he got with the Arizona Cardinals to Jalen Carter. Milton Williams with the New England Patriots. If I'm Jalen Carter, I'm sending him a text saying, yo, Milt, I love you, dude. Where's my 5%, if not 10%? They are able to eat and able to be a wrecking ball because of what Jalen Carter means. He is a staple of that D-line. And I do have him 9 just because I think there are so many great players here. Let's sort of take a break for a second just to explain that. We are in a great position if Jalen Carter is this deep on the list, if he's not super close to number 1. There are so many debatable options. There are so many great offensive linemen. You can have 5 offensive linemen. Well, not really right guard, but you could put Mekhi Becton. If we're talking about last year and what players have done, you could put Mekhi Becton on this list based off of the season he had at right guard last year. So you could. I mean, I guess since he's not here, maybe that's sort of a weird thing to do, but you can't rule that out. So you could have all offensive linemen in your top 5 and you can make that argument. So there's just so much talent here. It's not really a knock on any of these players where they are plugged in at. It's more about, it just shows you what type of talent we have in town across all 4 major sports. So after Jalen Carter at 9, I do take a look at our baseball team and go with Kyle Schwarber. This guy just hits nukes 24/7. He's a pro hitter. He's a clubhouse guy. There's a reason why wherever he goes, they have success. Now, we still want to see the big championship. We still want to see the World Series ring. We need another one considering 2008 was way too long ago. But there's reasons why teams are after him heavily with where he's at in his career. He's not going to slow down anytime soon. He's not an everyday player that takes the ball field. He's just a pure hitter at DH, and that skill set's not going to diminish over time. He just nonstop rakes, and there was a concern that he was going to hit 200 and have 1,000 strikeouts per year. His batting average would be so low, but he'd hit 50 bombs. He turned that around big time. He does other things. He hits it the other way. He hits for average better than he did when he first got here. There was a concern that he was straight up strikeout or home run, and that was it. It was all or nothing bust, and he has definitely improved in that area. And one thing that you really got to appreciate is right now there's no right-handed bat that you can plug in behind Bryce. And Bryce is injured on the IL currently, but we were trying to figure out who would bat cleanup as a right-handed stick to be that guy that everyone's afraid of when Bryce Harper's at the plate, that we got to pitch to Bryce because player X is a juggernaut. And I thought in theory when you pay Nick Castellanos, that's why he'd be here, but that's not really the case. You can now dance around Kyle Schwarber all along this lineup and still have a good DNA and a good brand based off of where he's plugged in at. He could be leadoff and set the tone as a leadoff guy, not a traditional leadoff guy, but someone who can give you a 1-0 lead with a solo shot and a jack to start the game off in the bottom of the first or the top of the first. But he can also be a lefty bat. He can hit lefties. To go lefty, Bryce and Kyle. And when Stott was leading off, that's 3 lefties out of your first 4 hitters. To not have fear about that because you trust Kyle Schwarber to do it against a lefty or a righty is very important. And I mean, this guy is a serious machine. All right, before we continue, let's take a little break so I can tell you about my friends at Green Lawn Fertilizing. If you've been listening to me for a bit of time now, you know I am obsessed with my lawn. And that's because I went to the experts. I was a fool, okay? When I first became a homeowner, I didn't pay attention a lick to how my lawn looked. And unfortunately, I was in a position where it needed to recover badly. So what did I do? I reached out to people who really understood how to make sure your lawn can recover. Green Lawn Fertilizing created their own custom blend to help me out. We're going through multiple different treatments, and I'm watching my lawn progress after each treatment. I'm in love. They just wrapped up the third treatment, and you know what I really love about them is they teach you exactly what's happening, and they could see a couple of brown spots when I had my updated photos. And they said, don't worry about it, Brodes. It's because we killed the weeds, and now it's time to get new grass. So it's supposed to look like that because there are areas where the lawn is luscious, it's green, it's really looking good. And then there are some areas where it's brown. And I was wondering, well, why? Is that something that's going wrong? Is that something that's not right? I don't know. I'm not really familiar with all of this stuff. That's why Green Lawn Fertilizing is the place to go, because they have all the knowledge in the world. Said, Brodes, listen, we got it taken care of, baby. All it is we're killing weeds here. Before you know it, we'll take the next step and we'll continue with this process. And we got this whole thing under control. And I said, I love you. I mean, I straight up said, I love you. And the reason why they're so great is not only do they have the best customer service around, not only are they like family, you become a family with one another when you work together, but also they are giving you an opportunity to get 50% off your first two treatments right now by signing up, clicking the link down below in the description. That's 50% off your first two treatments. Do not be a fool. Get started today with Green Lawn Fertilizing. On to number 7, A.J. Brown, baby. A.J. Brown, one of the best wide receivers in the game. Man, he is just so tough. He's such a big body. He's so mean. He's so intense. The things you can do if you get the football in his hands, maybe work in a slant and you get him moving and Jalen hits him perfectly. The ball's in a great window. You catch him in stride and he just uses the muscle and the ability to use that speed at that size to beat anybody defensively who's trying to cover him. Or, if it's a 50-50 ball and it's a bomb downfield and you go trust him to win that matchup, to use his arms to create separation, but not too much where they're throwing a flag for offensive pass interference, but enough where it's subtle and he just goes up and grabs it as Jalen Hurts puts it in an area and space for him to go get it. A.J. Brown is ridiculous. There's only a handful of players that you could even say is in that same category, whether it's the Jamar Chases of the world, the Justin Jeffersons, but A.J. Brown is right in that tier. If you want to say Justin Jefferson's better, fine. I'm not going to argue about it, but he's closer to those guys than not. He's in that weird little window where he may be on an island by himself in that range outside of those two monsters. Then there's maybe one step below, and that's A.J. Brown, and then there's a step below him if you want to get technical about it. But he is so great. He is so amazing. And, it's almost, I feel bad for Devontae Smith because he gets lost in the shuffle. He gets lost in the sauce. He is a number one on essentially every team that doesn't have some of the names I just mentioned. He's a number one on 90% of NFL football teams, his toe tapping ability. But when A.J. Brown's here and when he's your star, it's funny. I was talking to Freddie Mitchell. I was able to host on the midday show when Hugh Douglas was gone one Friday afternoon, and we were at Ron Jaworski's golf outing. And there were a lot of different guests that kept coming up and talking to Joe Giglio and I, and we got to talk to Freddie Mitchell. And one of the things I laid out to him was I just wanted to pick his brain on what he sees when he watches A.J. Brown. What goes through his mind when he sees a talent like that? And I was expecting, wow, his footwork, wow, his ability to use his hands to create separate, wow, the little things, the details in his route running, and, just the smaller things that don't necessarily pop up unless you're really analyzing it to a deeper level, especially someone who played the position in Philadelphia. What does he see on the field? And his first initial reaction is, I need to get this dude the ball more. I need to make sure we get Saquon Barkley his touches, and we know we're a run-heavy first type of team. And when you have a 2K type rusher, of course, that's where your first look goes, especially when the offensive line barges into Nick Sirianni's office and says, we need a change. But also, A.J. Brown, I mean, he needs 10 targets at a minimum each game consistently. And you can look back to last year, 6, 7, things of that nature. And there's no doubt about it, the passing game needs to elevate. It needs to be better than where it was last season until they figured it out in the playoffs and started to really cook. That needs to change a ton. And Kevin Patullo, who is now in charge as OC, was part of the passing game gameplay. He was the passing game coordinator, so he was a part of that. It's on him to go back to the drawing board to make sure that gets cleaned up, because you need to see A.J. Brown pop off even more than we do see A.J. Brown pop off. And teams are going to sell out for Saquon and all, I'd imagine, and that's going to open up possibilities, right? The Saquon thing is almost equivalent to the Jalen Carter thing. His presence alone allows your defensive line to get going. Well, Saquon's presence alone obviously made Spags have to really attention in on that, or put all of his attention in on that, and that opens up the passing game. But we need to see it develop even without that being the case, because throughout the regular season, it's not the same way as maybe it will be in an NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl, as we saw, and they need to have the answers there. But A.J. Brown helps you get the answers there because of his greatness and how he can beat up on guys. Number 6, I'm going with Lane Johnson. The record says it all with Lane on the field compared to with Lane off the field. And I know this is a bit of a glitch in the system, if you will, but I almost utilize Lane Johnson as he's the face of the offensive line. You can put Mailata on this list. You can put Cam Jurgens on this list. Someone who won a Super Bowl the year after you lose a Hall of Famer in Jason Kelce, and you don't skip a beat. And, you got this precious play and the tush push, and things still operate smooth enough, obviously, to the point where the league wants to shut it down because they are efficient at it at an elite clip. So you have all these things working for you. Landon Dickerson, there was a concern when he got drafted that there were too many injuries and his knees won't hold up. But now you know that you got someone slotted into that left guard position. That left side of the line is lethal. It's elite. I almost utilize personally Lane Johnson as the description of how dominant the offensive line is. But this guy's a Hall of Famer. And it's funny, we were talking about this on the radio the other day, that it somewhat just goes underneath the radar. And I think for offensive linemen in particular, you don't get the love and appreciation you deserve unless you're on your final year or your final last year. When you're in the middle of it, you're in the thick of it, and you're just kind of doing your dirty work on a day-to-day basis and dominating. Sure, there's few moments where they hone in on that on the broadcast, and they'll circle Lane Johnson and show him getting to the second level and maybe pushing somebody backwards and creating a lane. They definitely do that in-game. But yeah, I mean, nationally, First Take or ESPN isn't going to have a graphic that goes, how great is Lane Johnson? It's just not sexy. It's just not what catches people's attention in that way. But when Jason Kelce was on his final year, and granted, he's got the whole superstardom going with his brother and Taylor Swift, so that magnifies things and his podcast. But when Jason Kelce was on his last hurrah, there was definitely national storylines about the last hurrah. If you think about Cleveland and their offensive line situation over the years, when a big guy leaves, you think about the LA Rams. When an offensive lineman leaves there and they start going into the TV world, there is a little buzz on their final stage of their career. So it does happen. It's just one of those things where you don't get the appreciation and love until your back stretch and really like your last year or two. But I got Lane Johnson, number 6 on my Philly top 11 list. Let's go to number 5. It's Bryce Harper. This guy is an MVP, right? Like, he's that dominant when healthy. Now, right now, he is battling a wrist, and there are things that linger. But even when he has a UCL, for example, that doesn't stop him. So, I mean, Bryce Harper does things where he is, at times, face of the game talk of Major League Baseball. There's Juan Soto, there's Shohei Ohtani, there's guys of that caliber. Bryce Harper is in the mix of that caliber. And when he gets red hot, there's nothing like it. Sure, there are times where he strikes out, or it's weird where you go, hold on a second. These no names, these stiffs on the mound are challenging Bryce Harper. What is going on in this 2-week span? But then you see a month of hitting 400. Then you see 3 weeks of him hitting 387, hitting nukes every day, hitting a bunch of homers, doubles in the gap, hustle doubles, the flow going, the helmet flying off. I mean, he is a staple to the city of Philadelphia, whether this should apply or not. I know this dates back to just the past year, but, I mean, that was a big-time acquisition, a big-time free agent hitting the market and wanting to come here. And again, that just plays into the bias part of it. I know I'm looking strictly at what they've accomplished, but they won the division last year, 90-something wins. They fell flat in the postseason, and the entire team has its flaws. But, you finally take down the behemoth of the Atlanta Braves. You win the division, and that's what we saw last year. And, I'm just going to appreciate Bryce. Number 4, someone who was not on a lot of lists, believe it or not, that's Joel Embiid. I hate to be the guy that has to play this card, but I feel you are extremely disrespecting who Joel Embiid is if you leave him off here thinking he's not a top athlete in town. Now, yes, there are injuries and there's issues with his knee, and I don't know what to expect moving forward with the Sixers running it back, and that's a discussion for an entire different day with Nick Nurse and Maxey and McCain and then Paul George, who doesn't want to be here, and Daryl Morey and the whole thing. I don't really subscribe to their recent interviews with Daryl Morey and what they're trying to sell and the image and all that. I'm not a fan of where they're at. But that does not mean Joel Embiid over the last year. Now, he was injured, but he's so talented and he's so good and he's so amazing, just skill level wise, the talent that he shows on the floor when he is out there, even if he's not out there enough, it overseeds the injury stuff because he's that good, because he's that talented. Now, he may have hiccups, turnovers in a playoff game, this and that, but just raw, natural skill, talent, ability. It's that rare. It's that elite. It's that monstrous that it overpowers and overrides any of the flaws that he has with the injury front. That's just how I feel. Joel is that good of a player. Number 3, and this may shock you, Saquon Barkley. I have Saquon Barkley at 3. I don't really need to go into detail on what he did. He was the force. He was amazing. He set the tone. He's jumping over people backwards. He's on the Madden cover. I mean, the story speaks for itself. We all witnessed it. My favorite is actually the Washington Commanders in the NFC Championship game. After they go on a little bit of a drive, they kick a field goal. It's super cute. They feel good about themselves on how the first few minutes went. They had one goal. Do not let Saquon Barkley beat me. Here's Saquon Barkley getting the ball, running it 60 yards down their throat to the house. And right then and there, they spent hours, countless hours, days, weeks, figuring out how to not let that happen. And you broke their whole entire soul into a million pieces right off the rip. I mean, that's one of my favorite moments of the entire year, on top of the LA Rams in the playoffs, smashing his helmet nonstop and having that celebration when he's running towards the end zone and breaking free. And I mean, he didn't have the greatest Super Bowl in the world because Spags did shut it down and dare Jalen Hurts to beat him. But the funny thing is, Jalen Hurts can and Jalen Hurts will. And I think that's pretty damn obvious. I could have told you that was possible. Now you got to pick your poison, because if you didn't take that method and then Saquon's running down your throat and running for 180 yards, if not 200 yards, and scoring 3 touchdowns, then, I mean, you're going to lose that way anyway. So I guess if you had to choose one, you choose Jalen beating you, but Jalen is going to beat you, so you're going to lose the game. It's just that simple. Saquon Barkley really set the tone, though. As great as Miles Sanders was, as great as DeAndre Swift was, the type of years they both had when they were here and just rotations of the past, there's something different when you have that workhorse back there in 26. And it'll be fascinating to see what the workload looks like moving forward and just how they try and strategically plan this thing coming off of such a heavy year for him with the usage rate and Will Shipley and A.J. Dillon, another quad father, if you will. I'm fascinated to see the the way Nick Sirianni attacks this and approaches this. And Saquon's already been on the record saying it's been a different offseason for him just physically to get his body right. And it's been a long offseason, a long season last year, which means the offseason was shorter, but he feels great. He feels he's in a good spot. I didn't even bring this up with Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson thinks he's just entering his prime, which is just amazing. These are the type of athletes we have in town. Number 2, Zach Wheeler. When you dominate the National League as much as he dominates, he's one of those silent assassins, those silent killers. He just ho-hum goes about his day, steps on the mound, and mows you down 7 shutty. He's a real pure ace of a staff, and every time he's on the mound, it's must-watch television. He'll pound the strike zone with fastballs and say good luck. When he starts mixing things up, it gets even funnier because these hitters are so confused and dazed, and it's just so nonchalant. It's just 97, 98, 99, 98, 99, 97. He's just got such good run on his pitch. He's nasty, man. He's nasty. It's Zach Wheeler. He's incredible. I love him. He's the best. He's amazing. The silent assassin, not filled with personality, not filled with a bunch of, audio cuts and whatnot. He just goes about his business. And when you steal him from the Mets, when there was so much injury concern, and you're able to keep him upright as long as you do to stick it to the Mets, that's amazing to think about everything he was dealing with physically when he was with New York. He just never had the opportunity to flourish. He never had the opportunity to show his worth and to show his excellence until he got here, and it's just been great since. And this is even dealing with late postseason runs and getting to the World Series and your body adjusting to pitching that much extra, and it just puts it in perspective. But Zach Wheeler, the silent assassin, man. It's even nationally, yes, people talk about it. Yes, MLB Network has clips of it here and there and whatnot, but you think of Garrett Coles and Justin Verlanders and Clayton Kershaw's in previous years, maybe not so much now, but in previous years, there's been so many other names that have popped more publicly and nationally when Zach Wheeler has been in the top of the Cy Young voting, should have some in the back pocket at this point. Like Blake Snell even gets more buzz in it. Now, maybe it's because of the amount of innings he doesn't eat, where they go, he's only a 5-inning pitcher, so Blake Snell gets talked about because it's more controversial. Maybe there's something to that. But yeah, Wheels does not get the love he deserves nationally, locally for sure. And that leaves number 1 on my list, the one and only Jalen Hurts. Congratulations, Jalen. Are you kidding me? The guy's Super Bowl MVP. He kicks ass. He shows up to work every day with such a purpose that it's contagious. I really love sort of this. I knew that this is how it goes, but I described it this way recently, and it's really sticking with me, that everyone says, does he elevate guys, right? Because people look at QBs and say, well, he elevated his receivers. He elevated the guys around him. He elevates the guys around him. Because when you're around him, it's contagious. The energy, the work ethic, the determination, the desire. And you know what? I saw the comment on my YouTube channel. It was maybe yesterday. And I do want to pop it up because it was perfectly laid out in a way that is right on the money on who this team is with Jalen Hurts as quarterback. Let me find some of these latest comments here. It says here, all these quarterbacks that are mentioned in debates with Jalen are more talented, but they're not more dedicated. And that's the difference. He's got that Kobe mindset, not the most talented, gifted-wise, but he's just hungrier than everybody else. And that is the truth. He wants it more than everyone. He wants to prove people wrong more than everyone. His demeanor is serious. And if you don't match that intensity, you will not be able to manage in the Eagles locker room. You can't just go by your business and not lock in at the rate that Jalen locks in. Him locking in automatically makes everybody else lock into their respected craft the same way he's locked into his. That's elevating your team. He sets the tone. He's the quarterback. He deals with a ton of wrongful scrutiny. Now, there are times where it's reasonable. There are times where, let's say, against Green Bay in Brazil, you got to pick apart the turnovers and how much it could have been worse and how many turnovers were probably left on the board by Green Bay and whatnot. But once he cleans up that area and he starts cooking, this guy has brought us to 2 championships in 3 years, won one of them. And I was bringing this up recently too. If you think of the last few years, so last year they went on a 10-game win streak. Okay, so they went on a 10-game win streak last year. The year before that, they won 10 of 11. The year before that, they won 13 of 14, including 8 straight. I mean, think about that winning. And while, yes, there's organizational success involved in there, Howie's great, D-line's great, DBs are great. There's a lot of great talent here, great talent. The quarterback is the most important in town. And without a quarterback you need a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over. You need a quarterback who's very smart. How many times did you check at the line of scrimmage in the playoffs and it instantly result into a touchdown? Many. Throughout the year, many, I should say. Many. That's knowledge. That's information. You don't need to have a gunslinger for that. You got to have smarts. You got to have hunger. You got to have determination. And you're reading the defense, which I'm told he can't do. Pre-snap, changes, bada bing, bada boom. We're now getting 7. I mean, that's game-changing elite quarterback play, especially when you limit turnovers, and that's what he does. Now, unfortunately, it may come with a sack you don't like to take, and he needs to clean that up sometimes, throw it away, don't take the sack to get you out of field goal range. I mean, he is human, right? Josh Allen throws interceptions. Lamar Jackson can't win a big playoff game. So there's all these other examples of guys that have their own version of flaws. Maybe for Jalen, that's what it is. He takes a sack when he shouldn't. But you know what I find funny? All the Jalen haters in town who think that number 1 on the list is too high for him, which is extremely laughable in my opinion, if you think that that's crazy, is they want someone who is more pleasing to the eye, right? That's Donovan McNabb. Those same people would say Donovan McNabb was a bum. He's a choke artist. He can't win the big one. Whoa. So you don't like the guy who wins in his way, wins Super Bowl, by the way, Super Bowl. All we dream about, Super Bowl. The guy who wins Super Bowl bring us 2 and 3 years with those win streaks that I've just mentioned, by the way, in 3 consecutive years. So you don't want that, but you want the guy that has the pleasing style that's crazy and makes all these awesome plays and has a big arm and, Donovan McNabb. But then you rip him for not being good enough because he can't win the big one. That doesn't make sense. So that's the guy you want. You want Donovan McNabb. Or do you want Jalen Hurts? And I like Donovan. I'm a Donovan fan. I don't think you're in a bad spot with the Donovan, just like I don't think you're in a bad spot with Josh Allen. Don't tell me Josh Allen doesn't have enough to win a championship. Don't tell me Lamar Jackson doesn't have enough to win a championship, who brought in a big runner and Derrick Henry to help out his offense too, by the way. Please. The Ravens are a well-ran organization. Does that knock Lamar's stock and status? So no Devontae, no Zach Bond, no Cooper DeJean, no Jordan Mailata, no Cam Jurgens, and no Dallas Goedert. Joe DeCamera, who hosts the morning show on WIP, did not have Jalen Hurts in his top 11, which pissed a lot of people off, and rightfully so, when you have someone like Ranger Suarez in there instead. Joe Giglio, who hosts the midday show, had Jalen at 9. That's a little too low for my liking. And so far, the first 2 WIP top 11 Philly athletes this Monday was announced. They keep announcing a couple more each day. At 11 was Devontae Smith. So Devontae just missed the top 10 with all the listeners who voted and the host who voted combined. These are the real, all-together, put-together stats list. Right now, we know 11 and 10. 11 was Devontae, and 10 was Joel Embiid. So listen, it's fun exercise. It's fun to start debates and freak out or whatnot, but it's not that serious. It's the middle of June. It's a little bit of a quiet time. I love the idea of top 11 and just throwing around who you love and who you appreciate in town based off of what they've done for you recently. But yeah, I mean, you can make the argument Bond, all-pro linebacker, could be in that list. Of course, you can make the argument that any of these offensive linemen I didn't put in is in there. Cooper DeJean could make your list maybe as 11, 10 in that range too. But this is sort of how I see it, and I'm curious your thoughts. Thank you all so much for kicking it with me right here on Bleacher Report. I will talk to you again tomorrow, same place, same time, 6 Eastern on Bleacher. You guys are the best. Go Birds, and have a great rest of your evening.